boys and girls. Welcome back to my channel for another Sunday School Wednesday video. At the end of the last video, I taught you all about God sightings. So I heard back from some who watched the video and they told me about their God sightings, so I just wanted to share some with you and to bring some encouragement. So one person said that they were loading their groceries and someone from across the street offered to help them, so that was really nice. Another person said that their roses are finally beginning to bloom in their garden, and that's really exciting. I have some flowers blooming outside as well, so that's really beautiful. And then finally, one person just said that they just simply loved logging in online and watching more and more people show more acts of kindness in the midst of this really scary time. So I 100% agree with that. Thank you to those who shared their God sightings with me, and I hope this can encourage you all to continue to seek out God's blessings in places where we normally wouldn't think to. In today's video, we are going to be talking about patience. God is working in our lives in so many different ways. Sometimes when we are praying to God about something we want for ourselves or for others, it either doesn't happen right away or something else can happen that we didn't necessarily expect or even want. This is when patience comes into play. Patience can be hard to practice, but it is also another way we can show our faith in God. Let's just say a little prayer and then we'll get started with our lesson today. Dear God, thank you so much for this day and letting us have a virtual platform for us to keep spreading our word. We ask that you be with us today during our lessons so that we can learn how to stay patient with you, God, and know that you are always there for us, even if we don't know why certain things are happening. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So, to learn about patience today, I'm going to show you all a little story. It's called Horton Hatches the Egg, and it's by an author that you might already know called Dr. Seuss. And so when we think about Dr. Seuss, we think of his whimsical way of telling silly stories and his illustrations in his books. However, underneath all of those things, his books usually withhold a very important message. So grab a snack, sit back and relax, and pay close attention to the sticky situation Horton the elephant was put in. Hatches the Egg by Dr. Seuss. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored, and I've got kinks in my leg from just sitting here day after day. It's work, how I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation, fly off for a rest, if I could find a moment to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. Hello, called the lazy bird, smiling her best. You've nothing to do and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest? The elephant laughed. Why, of all silly things, I haven't feathers and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am. I'm so immense. Tut, tut, answered Maisie. I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it, no trouble at all. Just sit on it softly, you're gentle and kind. Come, be a good fellow, I know you won't mind. I can't, said the elephant. Please, begged the bird. I won't be gone long, sir, I give you my word. I'll hurry right back, why I'll never be missed. Very well, said the elephant, since you insist. You want a vacation, go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful, I mean what I say. Toodaloo, sang out Maisie, and fluttered away. The first thing to do, murmured Horton. Let's see. The first thing to do is to prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done. Before I get on it, I must weigh a ton. Then carefully, tenderly, gently, he creeped up the trunk to the nest, where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. Now that's that. He sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he sat all that day, and he kept the egg warm. And he sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured and it lightened, it thundered and it rumbled. This isn't much fun, the poor elephant grumbled. I wish she'd come back, 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget." But Maisie, by this time, was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach, and having such fun, such a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to her nest. So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn. The leaves blew away. And then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with a sneeze, "I'll stay on this egg and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through, and then came through the springtime, with troubles anew. His friends gathered round, and they shouted with glee, "Look, Horton the elephant's up in a tree." They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, "How absurd! Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird." They laughed, and they all ran away. And Horton was lonely, he wanted to play. But he sat on the egg and continued to say, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended." But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended. For, while Horton sat there, so faithful, so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up softly behind. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest. He held his head high, and he threw out his chest. And he looked at the hunters as much as to say, "Shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. But the men didn't shoot, much to Horton's surprise. They dropped the 3 guns, and they stared with his wide eyes. "Look," they all shouted, "can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree. It's strange, it's amazing, it's wonderful, new. Don't shoot him, we'll catch him, that's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive, why, he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money." And the first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes on the front for the pullers to drag in. They dug up his tree and they put it inside, with Horton so sad that he practically cried. "We're off," the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, up over the mountains 10,000 feet high. Then down the mountains and down to the sea, went to the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship, out over the ocean, and woo, what a trip! Rolling and tossing and splashed with the spray, and Horton said day after day after day, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant, but oh, am I seasick 100%. After bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at least in the town of New York. "All ashore!" the men shouted, and down with a lurch when Horton the elephant, still on his perch, tied onto a board that could just scarcely hold him. Bump! Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Sold to a circus, then week after week. They showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington, too, to Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota. And everywhere thousands of folks flocked to see and laugh at the elephant up in a tree. Poor Horton grew sadder the farther he went, but he said as he sat in the hot, noisy tent, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. Then, one day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not so far from Palm Beach. And, dawdling along way up high in the sky, who, of all people, should chance to fly by? For that old good-for-nothing bird, Runaway Maisie, still on vacation, still just as lazy. And, spying the flags and the tents just below, she sang out, "What fun! Why, I'll go to the show." And she swooped from the clouds through an open tent door. "Good gracious," gasped Maisie, "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest ear-splitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg! Why, it's hatching!" "But it's mine," screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done, now she wanted it back. "It's my egg," she sputtered. "You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree." Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell, from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears, and a tail, and a trunk just like his. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked, and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered, and they cheered, and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. "My goodness, my gracious," they shouted, "my word. It's something brand new. It's an elephant bird." And it should be like that. Because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy, 100%. Okay, I hope you guys really enjoyed that story. So I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about the story and discuss about why maybe everything was happening in the story and why it happened that way. So go ahead and grab a piece of paper and jot down some of the thoughts that you have while I'm asking these questions, or you can discuss them with your families. First, why do you think Maisie didn't want to sit on her egg? Go ahead and pause the video and jot down some thoughts. So Maisie didn't want to sit on her egg, probably because she was growing very impatient. The egg was taking a really long time to hatch, and she was bored and wanted to play. Second, was it easy for Horton to sit on the egg for so long? Go ahead and pause the video and jot down your thoughts. So, as you probably know, it really wasn't easy for Horton to sit on the egg for so long. It was storming a lot and it would get really hot. And he wanted to play too. But he wanted to keep his word 100%. Third, how do you think Horton felt when the egg hatched and a flying elephant came out? Go ahead and pause the video and jot down your thoughts. Horton probably felt really happy and accomplished. He sat on the egg for a really long time and went through so much while doing it, but in return, he was rewarded with something that he loved. And finally, can you think of a time where you were faithful, loyal, and patient 100%? Go ahead and pause the video and jot down your thoughts. So, as you saw in the story, staying patient and trusting the process can be extremely rewarding in the end. I know that it's so hard to stay patient, especially when you don't like what is going on in your life at the moment, but God makes all things work together for our good. Not just for any reason, any old reason at all, but for the true betterment of ourselves. This week's memory verse comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8. It says, "Finishing is better than starting. Patience is better than pride." It's music time! Finishing is better than starting. Patience is better than pride. Finishing is better than starting. Patience is better than pride. Okay, boys and girls, thank you so much for coming to another one of my lessons, and I hope that you can really be patient this week and know that God is with us and He is doing what is best for us in the long run. And I just hope you guys have a great and healthy week. Goodbye.